It's terrific to see such a great group this morning. YMCA members, community members, neighbors. Good morning, neighbors. And friends. Thank you very much for being here. Please don't hesitate at any point, not to get up and walk out necessarily, but to have another cup of coffee or some fruit, some water. And we'll just kind of make it very informal and easy here. So let me welcome you to what's been called Breakfast with Bill. It's great to have so many folks here. And I suspect that one of the reasons that there are so many folks here today is that this topic of healthy living is a very, very important topic. What I'd like to do is take a few minutes. I've got a bit of a presentation, but rather than have me drone on too long, let's make this as much conversation as presentation. Please don't hesitate at any point to stop and raise a hand and voice your opinion, voice a view on this topic that I think many people have become aware of, and is very important not only to our community, large and small, but our nation and certainly the world. So welcome. I'm going to introduce some people at the risk of not getting all of them. Pioneering Healthier Communities is not a YMCA thing. It's a thing that is, the catalyst is the YMCA, but the real strength behind it is the community. And we have with us today a number of the community leaders who come together around this idea of pioneering a healthier community. And I'm going to introduce some of them. Dr. Tim Sanborn is here, and we're going to hear a little bit more from Dr. Sanborn. Martha Arntzen, I know, was planning on coming, but I don't see her yet this morning. Sandra Hill. Sandra is part of the coaching team. She's the community coach linking this collaboration with other members of the community to try to bring as many voices around the table as we can. Matt Johnson is here. Monique Parsons is here. The Reverend Mark Dennis is part of the community collaboration. Thank you for being here. I know I saw some other folks. My list is not... it's failing me a little bit. Seth Green. Seth, I saw you come in. Thank you for being part of this collaboration. We're in the early stages. We're still bringing folks to the table to make sure that the group that we'll talk a little bit about is both broad and deep in the community. But with that, let's get started. This is one of numerous photos, images, iconic articles that we've all seen that talks about the obesity epidemic. And you don't have to look far to know that we have a real issue. And what I'd like to do is bring it home. We see these pictures and we think the U.S. or we think Illinois. What I'd like to challenge us to do is think Evanston today and think about what we need to do to address the obesity epidemic. We're going to talk a little bit about our nation's health, adults, children, Illinois. One long-term strategy, not the only, but one long-term strategy which the YMCA of the USA for the past 6 or 7 years has helped drive, which is called Pioneering Healthier Communities. And then talk a little bit about next steps for our community. So there are many, many, many definitions of obesity. One is around this measure of body mass index, and for those who need a definition, that's one of the definitions. Body mass index, BMI, is not a perfect or an exclusive measure, but it is a measure that helps us take a look at what this obesity epidemic really looks like. For some of you, you've seen this series of slides and perhaps would do well to get a reminder. Others may not have seen this series of slides, but there's a series of slides that indicate those states where there's certain levels of body mass index. And as you go on the right-hand side of the scale, it indicates an increasing level of obesity among adults. So this looks back at 1990. Five years later, the country is dramatically different. So much so that they've had to add another color, another level, another gradient of obesity to represent the BMI findings. Again, not a perfect measure, but certainly a measure which, if used consistently, can provide at least an indication of trend. Step back or step out. I'm sorry. Okay, from 1995 to 2000, yet another addition of a level of obesity. To 2005, at least it's more colorful. To 2009. Again, what I hope is very clear, what I hope is very compelling, is that this is a nationwide problem. This is a problem that is escalating, and this is the tip of the iceberg. If you think that body mass index is an indication of obesity, then the question is, one could ask, so what? The issue is incredibly important when you look at the underlying diseases which result from obesity. So think diabetes, think chronic heart disease. The list goes on and on and on. So obesity is a key factor in driving these very serious diseases, which become chronic diseases and very hard to address at the curative end of the spectrum. Our argument is there's a preventative end of the spectrum that needs to get our attention, needs to get our resources, needs to get our energy and our community convened around this issue. So here's just some of the findings that reinforce what I think we could agree is certainly a disturbing trend. To me, this was the most stunning quote that I saw when I first saw these slides in this presentation about 5 years ago. And I'll read the last part of this, this quote. The youth of today may, on average, live less healthy and possibly even shorter lives than their parents. And this is a researcher at the University of Illinois Circle campus who is recognized as among the experts in obesity in the country. To me, that is a stunning, stunning thought. That my kids, unlike my expectations growing up, where, you know, I thought I would live a longer life, a healthier life, a more affluent wife to be, life to be. Beth isn't here. A more affluent life than my parents. This, to me, it is the switch we want to make this morning from, we've been talking about adults and adult data, we're now switching to kids, where this epidemic has, in my view, and perhaps in some of your views, even more of a call to action. So what does it look like? Here are some of the data with respect to how it's changed over the years by age of youth. So you can see, as you slice the youth population into age groups, over the years, this issue has become an even greater issue among youth. It becomes more stunning if you slice the data by race and ethnicity. These are incredibly powerful pieces of data that I, again, for the YMCA, and I would say for our community, are a real call to action. So where does Illinois rank? We rank 4th in the nation in childhood obesity. What that has meant is because there are others in this group at the bottom, if you will, the YMCA of the USA has focused some of the work and the resources being directed to childhood obesity to some targeted states to try to see that if there is a real effort made, a concentrated effort in certain states, can those states really make progress? Can they begin to reverse the trend of childhood obesity? The thought being that in states and in communities that are communicating with each other and sharing successes and failures, there might be more shoulders against the wheel that would finally get it spinning to a much more positive trend for youth. And Illinois is a target state within the YMCA of the USA. Therefore, I think 16 communities in Illinois have come together to try to address childhood obesity. And there's a mixed message going on here. This is really a billboard. It's not cut and paste and try to put two things together. The point here that I'd like to suggest is that there's a battle going on that can't be won in the media. It can't be just an education campaign. It can't be just breakfast with bills and PowerPoints, because the amount of money that's going into the top billboard is rounding error for the money that goes into the billboards below. And I'm not just picking on McDonald's, but if you think the other fast food companies, the other sugared drinks companies, the other companies, the sugared cereal companies, we're not going to win that fight. There's not enough money to kind of go toe-to-toe in advertising. While education is important, and while information is important, and while we can get some messaging out, that's not the only answer. And arguably, it might not even be an answer that's going to be very effective for us. So what's pioneering healthier communities? I'd like to stop for a second, and Tim, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot for a second. Dr. Tim Sanborn is head of cardiology at Evanston Hospital. And what, 3 or 4 months ago, we got in touch and I asked Dr. Sanborn, would he go to Washington for 3 days to be part of the beginning of this community collaboration. The man has plenty to do, and he committed 3 days to go to Washington, is here this morning, and is a very vital part of the beginnings of our collaboration. Tim, can you share with us a little bit about your background, your read on some of this data, and why you're here?
Sure. Well, thanks, Bill. Just by way of background, I grew up in Evanston. Actually came to this YMCA as a child and went to some of the camps over the summer, used the swimming pool, the exercise room. Obviously it's improved significantly since just a few years ago. But I've been taking care of adult patients with diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease. I can deal with these patients one-on-one and try to get them to exercise, lose weight, control their blood pressure, their blood sugar, their cholesterol. But I think I started to think, and I've been in touch with members of the YMCA. I think we really need to develop a broader, more community approach to treating this. I can see only so many patients in the office, and as Bill said, we really have to address prevention rather than treatment.